Okay, everybody. Well, welcome this evening to our week 6. I can't believe 6 weeks during a sixth week of accountability for this group, which is really awesome. It's just a testament about how quickly time will actually pass you by. It's insane. I mean, I guarantee that if you're like most people, you probably started this 12-week session out thinking that you were going to be right on top of things and if you're like most people, you had every good intention in the world, but somehow the time just, flies by and you feel like you got to play catch up. And so, what I wanted to do was kind of address that and just let everybody know that it's okay. This isn't a college course where if you don't get certain things turned in right on time, you're going to fail. The beauty of this situation is that everything is here when if you need to go back and review something from a previous week, you can do that. You just go to the UK page and click on recorded webinars and watch something again. If you didn't have a chance to do one of our weekly exercises, then just go back and do it again. The important thing really is that you do it, right? As we go on, especially in the later weeks and the later topics that we're going to be talking through, you're going to find um, that there is so much that you can do to meet new prospects. We're going to be talking about all kinds of ways to expand your network, all kinds of ways to get people interested. And the problem is if you don't do the weekly exercise that week, a lot of people will just choose to not do it at all, and that's not beneficial for you at all. So I just want to encourage everybody, because I've been getting some messages saying that people were really excited, but they feel like they're falling behind or they feel like they should be doing more. And the answer is, if you feel like you should be doing more, well then maybe you can do more. But it doesn't matter that if you haven't done more. What matters is what you're going to do this week and in the weeks that are to come still. So the point is, there's no judgment, there's no crazy expectations that we want to put on you. We just want to support you in the growth and for the goals that you've set for yourself. So don't feel like if you forgot to do an exercise one week that you can't go back and do it again. With that being said, I also just wanted to say to everybody, I did get a message from somebody that was able to hear me last week, but basically, I know that you guys also had a national holiday last Monday. But for us in the U.S., it's Memorial Day. It's a big deal. Almost everything is closed, and so we were at a family barbecue. And when I went to connect and do the webinar, it started, but I think the connection actually froze, and so you probably didn't hear anything for the majority of the session. And so I really do apologize for that. The technical difficulty really was on the Wi-Fi connection, and I truly apologize to you for that. However, what I wanted to let you guys know is it's an important week. It's all about follow-up strategies, and we covered that topic and those slides during the Web Volume Contest about 10 weeks ago right here. So if you go to webvolumecontest.com and if you click on webinars and support, you can scroll down to week 5, which was the same topic as your week 5 because, as you are all aware, we're following the Web Volume curriculum together, right? So if you click on this, you can get all of that content and it's like you wouldn't have missed it. I highly recommend you watch this because this is what's going to make you money. Follow up and knowing how to do follow up is probably one of the best skills that you can have for yourself. Because follow up, I mean, really, the money is in the follow up. You've heard that a million times, and it couldn't be more true. But the real big gem to take away from the follow up session is this: when you call your prospects to follow up with them, the best thing that you can do is to be extremely specific with them. And what I mean by that is you don't want to pick up the phone and just say, "Hi, I'm just calling to follow up," because that's a very ambiguous statement, right? If you make that ambiguous of a statement, then you're going to get an ambiguous response, and people are going to be like, okay, well, I'm not really sure. And so, what you want to do is be specific so that you can really focus their thinking, and get them to think about a really a more valuable response. So, for example, if you have picked up that phone and made that same phone call and said, "Hi, it's Sarah. Listen, I'm glad that you had your appointment last week. I know that you had some questions around the design center. So I'm just calling to follow up to see if you got, any answers to that, or were you able to see some of our design samples, or talk to anybody over at MA Web Centers." So you ask a specific question, you're going to get a specific response, and that's going to help you to move your prospect to the next level. That's the difference between playing phone tag, and the difference between calling someone up and conducting some really, really good follow up so that you can identify exactly what that prospect needs so that you can help them get it. And so if their response is, "Yes, I saw the design. I was thinking about calling you back. I'm glad you called to follow up. When can we meet again, or when can we move forward?" Great. Or if the response is, "I don't know, I still have a couple more questions." And at that point, you can say, "Let's do this. Let's schedule another call with our sales team so that they can answer more questions for you around the design center, around whatever it was that you had questions around. Write them down for me so that when we meet this time, we can make sure we get all your questions answered." And it's that simple. You don't even have to know a lot about anything to do that. You're really just asking and trying to identify where they are in the process so that you can help be a facilitator. You can help them to move to the next level in their process of evaluation. It's really that simple. So please take 20 minutes and watch this session. It's really great. It can help you not only for your web center business, but also for building your own franchise. All right, so with that being said, we're going to switch gears and talk about this week's topic, which is all about qualified appointments, learning the difference and increasing your quality. And honestly, I can't think of a better time to talk about this because I've had a couple of web center owners that have reached out to me in the past couple of weeks, and they've had some issues where they scheduled a website appointment, and for example, this one case, they scheduled a website appointment, and it wasn't a very qualified appointment because there was no budget. There wasn't enough of a budget to actually move forward, and so that's an unqualified appointment, and then in turn the web center owner gets to, they get they get disappointed around that because they're all excited about scheduling the appointment, but at the end of the day, if it's not a quality appointment, it's not going to end in a sale, and that just ends up wasting your time and making you feel disappointment for no reason. So what I want to do is I want to address some key areas where you can increase the quality of the appointments that you're setting so that you give yourself the best chance for success. Because at the end of the day, if people don't have the money or they don't have the need, and if they don't have the timing, then they're not going to move forward with something like this. It's a big deal. Or at the end of the day, if what they want is something that we don't have and we can't help them, well, then again, you're setting the expectation in the wrong spot. And so we want to make sure that everybody is setting appointments where the expectation is in the right place. The appointments are qualified, the research was done, the need is clearly there. There's a potential good fit, right? It doesn't mean that you have to set only appointments that are absolutely going to close in a sale, but you certainly want to set appointments with folks that have a budget. You certainly want to set appointments with folks where you've done some research, you've had some conversations, you've done maybe a 15-minute consult, and you know that there is a potential fit there, because that's the best way that you can help somebody, right? It's also the best way that you can help yourself. So, before we get into that, just a reminder, I just showed you that. Please remember mawc411.com if you /UK activity report.jsp. If you go there, you can get the handbook, the recorded webinars, and that's where you need to be submitting your weekly results. Please don't forget to do that. It's really important so that we can, track our progress and see how everybody's doing. So the first step for quality appointments is to know what the difference is, right? And so, we've gone through this before, but Brian, the head of sales at MA Web Centers, couldn't agree with me more on all of these areas. It's hard because you get an appointment where someone sets it up and, they're more unqualified than they are qualified, and then everybody just leaves the appointment feeling frustrated. And so these are some really great places to take your temperature before you schedule an appointment or before you move forward with an appointment. The first and important place is, scheduling appointment with the decision maker, right? So everybody that has input needs to be on that call. And so if you've done that, if you've asked the question, "Hey, Is there anybody else that would have input in making the decision here? Okay, great. Let's get them on the call too. What is the availability for both of you? That's what a qualified appointment would look like if you're a web center owner trying to schedule an appointment. But what most people do, especially in their first appointments, is they just say, okay, great, we'll do an appointment. And you're so excited that you got the appointment that you forget to ask the question. And by forgetting to ask that question, at that point, the appointment will happen, and it will happen with only some of the people that need the information. And as a result, you run into some tricky situations where now that person that went on the appointment goes home and they try and re-explain everything that they heard on the appointment, and of course they're not going to do a great job of that because this is not their area of expertise. That's the point of the appointment, is so someone that is an expert in these areas can explain and answer questions, right? And so it's critical that people that have input can be on the call. Next would be being aware of an advertising budget. And that's simple. Does your prospect advertise at all? And if they do, where? That's all you need to know. Our product specialist will take that information and translate that into some sort of a budget. You don't have to ask questions about money. You don't even have to ask, do you have a budget for this? Or what is your budget for this? Now, if you feel comfortable to ask, what's your budget for a new website? Fine, go ahead and ask. However, just simply knowing if they do any other traditional advertising will qualify that they have an advertising budget at all. And that type of advertising that they do will translate into some sort of a number for the product specialist, and they will know that these people take their business seriously, that they set aside money or they dedicate some of their money to advertising. Third would be a solid business appointment, right? That means that you're completely aware of the exact time, the exact place, that there's little chance that that person is going to be interrupted, meaning you don't set an appointment with a restaurant owner during their dinner rush, and some people are going to be on it, and you're hoping that they can make it, but if they're busy that day, they may or may not show up. Or even if they do show up, because it's a busy time of their workday, they may have to step away. That is not a great example of an appointment, but what you would rather do is schedule a nice solid time. And I always ask the question, is this a good time for you to handle administrative kind of things? I just want to make sure that there's like little chance that we would be interrupted, because I want to make sure you get all the information that you need and we have enough time to answer your questions. Nice, simple questions. It's all about them making sure that they get the right information. And so you're not saying, hey, my time's really valuable, make sure you show up. You don't have to be aggressive. But you can set a very solid business appointment by simply stating the facts, right? Fourth, you're aware of some solid hot buttons or areas where we may be able to help. A hot button in sales is just something that is very important to your prospect. And so all that means is when you've had conversations with your prospect, they've let you know that there's a couple of areas that they're really interested in, whether it's social media, whether it's e-commerce, whether it's email marketing, whatever the case may be. If you're aware of the fact that there is a specific need that we might be able to fill, that will help the product specialist to close the sale for you. It also makes the appointment so much more valuable for your prospect, because now, as the appointment is being conducted, the product specialist can turn it around and they can have some nice focus around those hot buttons rather than making it more of a generic overview, right? Now, of course, the product specialist will ask questions during the appointment, and if they identify a hot button of their own, they'll start to focus there as well. But you want to just keep that in mind. Fifth is you have edified the product specialist. So you have clearly explained who they are, and what they will do. So when I schedule an appointment with the sales support team, I always say, okay, so I'm going to have a member of one of our product specialists on the phone with me. What they're going to do is they're actually going to demonstrate to you how the technology will work. They're going to answer all of your questions. They're going to even let you play with it a little bit because it's really easy to use. But they're actually going to conduct the appointment, and I'll be present because I just want to be there to help or to listen, or just be present and support and be supportive of you. So I let them know exactly who they are. If you don't edify who the product specialist is, then you run the problem or the risk of that prospect thinking you're the one that's going to do the appointment, or being confused as to why someone else is doing it. And so to set a qualified appointment, you definitely want to make sure that you're edifying who's going to conduct the appointment itself. And finally, you want to make sure that every single appointment that you ever book is confirmed. Um, the majority of no-show appointments in sales are unconfirmed appointments. And so, if you want people to show up and not to cancel on you, then the best thing that you can do for that is to go ahead and confirm your appointments. I always call and confirm everything in the affirmative. I never pick up the phone or send an email that says, "Hey, are you still coming?" What I say instead is, "Hey, it's Sarah Rose. How are you? I'm so excited. Our guys at MA Web Centers are looking forward to meeting with you tomorrow at 1. Just want to make sure I have the right phone number for you. Great. I've let them know a couple of the things that you brought up to me that you were really, looking for some possible solutions on. And so they'll be ready to rock and roll at 1 o'clock." Right. And so I don't say, "Are you coming?" I say, I am excited that you are coming. And it's two totally different things. So, interest, budget, and timing, some qualifying criteria and questions. Now, these are things that you want to look for when you're talking to your prospects, when you're doing your research, or when you're doing any of your correspondence. The first one is interest. Is there a solid interest? Meaning, is there a specific need that we can fill, and is this a potential good fit? So, very simply put, if you're talking to a prospect and you find out that they want to build the next Facebook with PHP, okay, that's not really a great fit. That's not something that we do. It's not something that we have as part of our technology. And so you don't want to start a project around that because of, ultimately we're not going to be able to do that job, right? And so it's not worth wasting anybody's time. But what you can find out is, are there any areas that they have some needs for that we might be able to help them with? And if there are some things that they want that are not really that important, or things that, for example, let me just think about an example. Say they want to be able to edit a file within the editor itself, and that's just something that's on their wish list. But we don't have that ability. So you say to them, "Well, how important is this to you before we move forward?" And they say, "Well, I guess it's not that important. We can always edit the files outside and just upload the new ones." Okay, great. So then that's not going to be a problem, right? Just, is it a potential good fit? These are some things that the product specialist will help identify for you. But before you schedule the appointment at all, you just want to make sure that you're not scheduling an appointment with someone that, for example, wants you to edit their WordPress design. We don't do that. We host WordPress sites, but we don't design in other platforms. So it's important to know those kinds of things. Second, advertising budget. We already talked about this, but do they advertise anywhere else? And if so, where? Write those things down. It lets you know if they take their marketing seriously. And third is timing. This is actually really good, especially for your own expectations. Are they motivated to go now? Or are they in somewhat of a researching phase, right? That's important to understand, because if they're just researching options, for example, or they are just researching to see, if this is something they even want to do at all, that's important for you to know so that you don't become disappointed if they don't move forward with a website sale. It's the same, it's, timing and interest and budget, all of these things are critical to understand. And if you miss this during your conversation, again, it's okay. The product specialist sometimes will uncover some of these things that we hope that you guys will uncover before you schedule the appointment. It happens all the time. Um, we've had website prospects that scheduled an appointment. I just had it happen to me actually last week. I had an existing client, wonderful woman. Her name's Mary, and she owns she actually owns like a theater company. And her husband wanted to set up a website for his business. He owned a dealership. And so we did the appointment with them. But because she was an existing client, I didn't really qualify this new prospect as well as I could have. And so we get on the phone and we talk about building out the e-commerce and what it would look like to list these the listings of the different cars and things like that, and what the pricing would look like. And they wanted us to do all of the e-commerce, so we laid it all out what it would look like. And Mary and her husband just said to me, "You know what, I wasn't expecting this price. I think it's more than fair, but I'm just going to have to wait about a month. So let's touch base again in July, and we will get this website up and going." And basically they just wanted to make sure that before they invested any money, that they had everything ready to go so that they weren't wasting any time before they made that investment. It's fine. Sometimes you find out that stuff right on the appointment. I've also had appointments where people told me that they had a solid interest and they wanted this amazing thing. We just had a client that basically wanted a custom search functionality on their website. and it was really important to them. And I said, well, MA Web Centers comes with a search functionality, but this is what it can do. There's also some free applications or widgets that you can use, or different code you can drop in. And he's like, well, that's not what I want. What I want is custom search functionality. I wanted to do this, that, and the other thing. And he described the whole thing. And I said, well, at that point, what we can do is we can quote you for some custom programming. If what we have in our existing system doesn't work the way that you want it, then these are the only other options that we have. And so at the end of the day, they felt that the price was more than they wanted to spend, so they decided to hold off on that project. Sometimes that will happen, but 9 times out of 10, your prospects, our solution will be more than enough to solve their needs or fill their needs. Um, and that's good to know. But again, when you're qualifying your prospects, sometimes you find this stuff out when you're talking to them. Sometimes you find it out during the appointment. It's important to understand that not every single prospect that you have is a qualified prospect. It's just really, really important to understand that. I don't want anyone to be disappointed if it turns out that their prospect, it just wasn't a good fit. It's okay to not be a good fit. The best thing to do at that point is just say, well, if we can be of service to you in the future, let's keep our communication open. Or if you can think of anybody else that, we might be able to help, leave it open so that at the very least you can get some referrals or give some referrals, right? That's the best thing you can do. Some more qualifying criteria is appointment timing. Again, making sure it's a good time to meet. Decision makers, we talked about that, making sure all decision makers will be available. And I wrote, seriously, everybody with input. And I wrote that because sometimes a business owner gives their 16-year-old child input on their website because they just trust them and value their opinion on technology kind of stuff. So, that's why I don't say any other business partners. I just say people with input. I also set the stage for success before my appointment. So I make sure that they can be on the phone and the internet at once, that they're not going to be driving, for example. Do they have an up-to-date internet browser? Have I edified the product specialist so they know who's going to be conducting the appointment? I also ask all of my prospects to write all of their questions down right in advance so that while they are on the appointment, they can actually ask their questions right there. I prefer for them to ask as many questions as they can during the appointment because it just limits the amount of follow-up that's going to be required of me. So we do this, we identify these needs and these solutions. We do that in a couple of different ways. There's a variety of tools. You can do some research in advance. We've talked about that, right? Where you Google your prospect and then you use your information to prepare some very good questions that you can ask your prospect. Another thing that you can do is you can conduct a 15-minute consultation as a focused way to just gather client information. You're building trust, and you are finding some really good hot buttons that will help the product specialist to close the sale for you, right? Now, at that point, you're going to provide a solution. You're going to use some summarization technique, right? You're going to confirm the client. You're going to get them the information that they need, which is the appointment. So what that simply means is you're going to use the information you found in your research, in your conversations, or during the 15-minute consultation to schedule a solid appointment, to say to them, okay, well, based on what we're seeing here, I'm finding that X, Y, and Z are super important to you. So I'm writing this down. We're going to make sure that we address those items during our appointment. And then you confirm the appointment. But when you actually use their hot buttons to schedule the appointment and you summarize it that way for them, it just makes the appointment that much more valuable, and it gets them that much more motivated to show up. When I qualify and I do my research, we've gone through this list of questions, so I'm not going to repeat them, but I find out, do they have a website? Is it up to date? It's so easy to do that. You can do this kind of research in just, really a minute. It doesn't take a long time to do that. Okay, now the next thing I want to bring your attention to, I know that we've talked about this a little bit in the past, but everybody should be familiar with using these 15-minute consultations. If you go to mawc411.com and you click on training and support and then down to resources, you will find the general one, the website management one, and also the digital one. The general one has some very focused questions around their business, how do they conduct their business, their website situation, their situation on the search engines, are they easy to find, and their social media situation. So your goal when you conduct these is really quite simple. You're just going to ask these questions and be quiet. You don't have to come back with any information. You don't have to explain how our solution is going to fix any of the problems that come up. but you really want to try to limit this to 10 to 15 minutes. It's a great pre-appointment tool. And when you conduct these, what happens is you end up setting incredibly valuable appointments, incredibly qualified appointments, because you're very aware of some very specific needs that we can help fill. And so you want to download these on that page and have them handy. Again, there's a general one, which if you're not sure if they're going to be interested in a whole website, social media, or search engine package, this is the best one to conduct. If you are aware that maybe they're really more interested in Google or Facebook or social media, there's a digital marketing one that has more targeted questions around those categories that you can use as well. So, thank you guys for joining. This week, our exercise is really simple. It's all about two things. Number one, when you schedule your appointments this week, I want you to go through the qualifying criteria. Go through this checklist and ask yourself for every single prospect that you set a website appointment for or have set a website appointment for, what would you assess yourself at in terms of were the decision makers present, their budget, their interest, their timing, the clarity, the confirmation? Were you able to schedule very high quality appointments, or are there some areas where you can improve to have better qualified appointments? Um, Second is 15-minute consultations. So I want you to shoot to schedule a 15-minute consultation with every single prospect that you have and every single person that you have booked into the sales appointment calendar with. This is going to increase the quality just by participating and doing that. And so please make sure that that is something on your to-do list this week. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and upload these slides into the UK Facebook group. And if you have any questions, continue to ask them throughout the week. I know a lot of you guys have been doing that. Really awesome questions have come up last week. There were some great questions around, how do we compare against some of these discount silly like hosting providers, and I saw some looking for UK design samples, and these are all great questions. It lets me know that you're actually talking to people, because these are the exact kind of questions that come up. So I'm happy to interact and help you any way that I can. Just make sure that you stay engaged. Don't be a stranger. Don't disappear. Make sure that you're doing that. If you're not part of the Facebook group, what you need to do is talk to Paul Nichols or somebody that is a part of that group so that they can add you, and they will add you to it. It's a secret group, so I can't send you an invitation, but the admin on there is Paul Nichols is one of them. So I know that would be one way to get in touch. All right, everybody, make it an excellent week and talk to you soon.